What is going on? You are listening to TAGSPodcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast, celebrating practically 7 years of podcasting. Our anniversary is coming up. This is episode 544. I'm your host, Steve V, alongside Jeremy Ross Lopez. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm very good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. And of course, joining us, the lovely, talented Kodi Maurice Doggette. How the hell you doing, Kodi?
Oh, hello, darling. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. That's so sweet of you.
Of course. I love my hosts.
Love you
definitely. Back. Bring back my hosts. Well, I'm in a great mood because, as many of you know, I just got back from the Vacaya Caribbean cruise. That was so much fun. Wow. And Kodi, you'll remember we were there with Vacaya in Puerto Vallarta for their resort, and many of the V team, as they call them, were on this particular cruise. And It was kind of family week for me, old home week, to just see some of these familiar faces that I was able to kind of escalate onto a new level. So I felt really a part of the team as much as, of course, a guest, and I was doing a little bit of work with them as well. But in general, so much fun. Of course, we went to places like Antigua and San Juan and St. Croix, which were gorgeous. I mean, the Caribbean is just stunning. But it was really a lot of fun just being on the ship. It was a celebrity Apex ship that had fabulous parties every night, themed parties I got into and met so many people. It was really Vacaya is so inclusive, which every age group, every uh, facet that you can imagine is represented. And I think that's why I really like it. People like Will Tantra of Tantric Fitness, who's been on our show, also was on the cruise with me as well. And we really bonded. I feel like I have a new brother in many regards. He has an OnlyFans just for fans, and he gave me the lowdown. So just watch out. My OnlyFans is going to be on fire. I mean, I really felt like I got a deep dive on do's and don'ts, and I am in good hands. Thank you so much, Will. Talent-wise, Alan Cumming was on the cruise and did his cabaret with Ari Shapiro. Many of you'll know Ari Shapiro is a journalist with All Things Considered on NPR, but Ari's also a singer too. And Alan and Ari have this cabaret show that they do periodically, and it's amazing. They're so talented together. They're hilarious. They tell stories. They're both married, and they talk hilarious stories about their husbands. They were so amazing to see. Wilson Phillips was also on the show at one point, which was hilarious to me.
The girl group?
Yes.
What?
I know. I missed them, but they were there and great.
They were on it?
They were on it, and they sang, on the one of the parties, and yes.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Totally hilarious.
All I think of is, aren't they the group from Bridesmaids?
Well,
all that wedding
they
song?
are the group that is featured in Bridesmaids.
Yes.
They were a group, and yes, Wilson Phillips, y'all. But my favorite,
hold on. I love it.
But my favorite of all, and I couldn't believe it, she's probably, you guys all know I love Madonna, Janet, of course, my Lisa Stansfield, but right underneath is Vanessa Williams. I mean,
oh, you've always loved her.
Always, if she's in a Broadway show, if she's doing a cabaret moment, if she's in concert, if she's in a film, if she's in an interview, I am glued. I'm just there. I've seen her. I've actually interviewed her when we had Progressive Pulse for her album in 2009, and I was flipping out, but I held it together to interview her, and I just adore her. I've met her once before. First of all, she looks amazing right now. She's like so svelte. She did so many like jazz numbers and some hits, and of course, Save the Best for Last, the Brian McKnight's song that she's known for.
Love is, that's my song.
Such a great song, and she's really down to earth and has such a funny thing. She's like, it comes from a show you'll never believe. From what's the show it came from? Not Melrose Place, but the other one, the high school show.
Oh, 90210.
90210. She's like, from a show you all like, believe it or not, from Beverly Hills 90210. And
I
she's
had the
like hilarious.
soundtrack when I was a kid.
Oh my God. And the Pocahontas song, which was beautiful, but she did some jazz numbers and she was just funny. And the boat was moving a lot. We were front row and she was, she looked gorgeous. I just loved her. And she is going to be Miranda Priestley in the West End in the Devil Wears Prada, the musical, coming up in October, which I'm going to London to see her because music's going to be by Elton John. And isn't she going to be the perfect Miranda Priestley? I mean, of all people,
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
you're right.
Perfect.
Perfect, right? In the musical
Yeah.
version. So, anyways, super excited about that. I met so many great people. The red light district was off the hook. They keep escalating
Ooh.
it on Vacaya. And this one was in this gardeny area, which had different tiers where you could sit, you could talk. There was a huge screen. At one point, I had filmed some content for Vacaya back in Mexico in October with Jet. Shout out to Jet's Adventures. And we were up on the huge screen getting it on with these red hues over us. And that was really exciting. But there was just slings and benches, and you could peruse, you could approach people, you could do it. Was so I met so many. It was very hot and sexy, and they keep escalating the red light district on Vacaya, which is very sex positive, and I think a lot of people get to experience that on a nightly basis. And you can, like I said, you could do whatever you want. So just an amazing time. I had a great time. Shout out to my friend Frank that I was with, and to some listeners that were on the cruise that said hi to me. Warren and Gavin are from Queensland, Australia. Big fans of the show. Loved meeting you, Warren and Gavin. And also Matt from Salt Lake City is a big fan of the show too. Thank you, Matt. I loved meeting you uh, this past week. So just can't say enough about Bakaya, and love to see some of you guys go on a future cruise or event with them. So yeah, great
That
times,
sounds
really great. Yeah,
that
loved it. Well,
sounds so fun.
yes. Oh my goodness. And back into this. So, okay, well, we've got so many hot topics to get into, including outrage as a Republican Oklahoma state senator referred to LGBT people as that filth after a non-binary student's death. So the story is Tom Woods is he's only 28. He's a Republican representing the Senate District 4, and he was on a panel on February 23rd. And in the panel, an audience member, Kathy Cott, inquired about the state legislators' attempts to impede the rights of our community or LGBTQ people before referring to the case of Benedict. Who was Next Benedict? Well, he was a 16-year-old non binary teen who used they them pronouns. He died following an attack by other students at their high school earlier this month. That's just awful. Well, Woods,
Yikes.
the senator, conceded that his heart goes out regarding the teen's death, but in the same sentence said, we are a a Republican state, supermajority in the House and Senate. I represent a constituency that doesn't want that filth in Oklahoma." Well,
Wow.
how do you say those things in the same sentence when somebody's life has been lost? And who cares that you're the majority right now, but somebody died and you barely give your condolences to, and you, in the same sentence, refer to them as that filth? Cody, you brought this story to us. I mean,
Yeah.
this is just appalling on so many levels. I can't believe, first of all, 28 Republican senator. I mean, he needs a lot to learn.
Oh, definitely. Teddy and I talked about this on Wednesday, next Benedict's passing, and it's such a tragedy to have lost someone so young. And all of our schools are not as protected as we like to think, and all our transgender youth is basically under siege at this moment. And for somebody to basically simplify or just brush us away and brush this death away is and completely appalling. And I hope that they vote him out. There was a call to action to actually reach out to the senator and try and get him displaced from the Senate, because that is something that you just don't do, especially after someone's death.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy, I know you're not like Mr. Politics, but you vote. And when you hear something like this, you know you've got brothers that have been in that are younger than you, and these words matter. That first of all, somebody died, and that alone, our hearts go out to the family of this person that did not deserve this,
Hmm.
and they did not deserve this. What are your thoughts on this senator just saying the word filth in the same sentence as slightly giving his condolences?
I think it's disgusting, and it doesn't like pair with trying to motivate any sort of group of people, and it's just really awful.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I hope Cody, continue to follow up on the story for us, because
Definitely.
probably nothing will happen to that senator, but it should. I
Definitely.
mean, yeah, you would think it would, and so we'll continue to report on that. Over the weekend, the Independent Spirit Awards just happened, and one of the shows that was honored was the scripted limited series The Last of Us, and Nick Offerman won Best Supporting Actor in this series. And he took the time to call out homophobic backlash he got after playing a gay character. And if you watched it, it's the show that you watched, Cody, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it stars our lovely Pedro Pascal, who is
Mm-hmm.
in The Last of Us, and it's quite apocalyptic. The series, I didn't watch it, but it looks really good. And I did you love it? First off,
Loved it. It's so amazing. It's so well told. There's so many levels to it. And this particular episode is beautifully done. I cried at the end because it's just so heart wrenching and heartwarming at the same time. It's a fabulous piece of art, in my
the,
opinion, even though it's like apocalyptic science creature feature type deal.
they're calling it one of the best scenes by to represent our community love of potentially all time, and which makes me just want to watch it. And he won. When he opened up his speech, he praised the streaming platform for and said, "Thank you so much. I'm astonished to be in this category." But he then went on to say the actor then hit out at anti-LGBTQ plus IA viewers who have questioned why the series included a gay story. We say, because you ask questions like that, it's not a gay story. It's a love story, you asshole, he
Hmm.
said. And I'm glad he didn't have to, he's probably received a lot of hate for this. And he's a straight man. He's married to Megan Mullally, Karen from Will and Grace. And this was just, according to what you've said, Cody, and what I've heard, it was a beautiful love story. It shows love. And I assume it fit within the storyline of the show. I'm glad people often use their platform to, especially our allies, because he's a straight man, but I'm glad he took the time to address this hatred. I mean, Cody, Jeremy, when you hear this, how important do you think our allies, we can hear from our community, of course, but when a straight man who's playing a gay character calls out the assholes that he's received for simply playing a love story, not a gay love story. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a great example, and I think it's something that other men need to listen to. And it's also great when it's an ally that has the message that they're comfortable with their sexuality enough to appreciate that it's a love story and not just labeling it like everyone else is used to. And I think it's a really good example.
I agree. And Cody, I've got to ask you because as somebody that hasn't always liked when a straight character plays a gay character, I'm
Mm.
assuming maybe you've changed your mind a little bit because, well, Murray Bartlett is gay and was the other half of this love story. Our boy here, Nick, isn't, and
Hmm.
but he stood up as an ally. Does this make you change your mind in what you've said in past episodes about not always liking it roles like this to go to our hetero counterparts?
Oh, definitely. And I think my opinion has changed over the last couple years, basically, since we first discussed this. Since seeing Kit Harrington, I think his name is, he got pulled out of the closet basically, and for playing a character in Heartstopper, basically. And I feel like that type of thing should never happen. So I think that you never can tell what somebody's sexuality is. For all I know, Nick Offerman is bisexual and he knows what love between two men is like. But even if he's not, that's perfectly okay because he portrayed us with authenticity, and he staunchly defends our rights to exist, which I cannot fault. And if he was bad at it, then maybe I might have something to say. But he was glorious, and I would watch that episode again in a heartbeat.
I need to check it out.
So
And
good.
yes, okay, good. Will it come back for season 2 or was that it?
It's coming back for season 2.
Okay, well, then I'm going to catch up on this. I love it. Okay, we've got to talk about a little tea here that happened last week. And when one of our pop stars gets into it, we've got to talk about it. I'm talking about Kelly Rowland.
Ooh.
I don't know if you guys heard, but last week when I was away, that's why we're a week late on this story, but people are still talking about it. Kelly Rowland has been, part of Destiny's Child, but artist in her own right, beyond Destiny's. And she is currently in a movie on Netflix, Mea Culpa, that was directed by Tyler Perry, and she's been promoting it. Well, she was on the Today Show last week and did her interview. She was scheduled to go on I think they call it, uh, it's like the fourth hour that they do, and it's with
Hmm.
Hoda Kotb, and she was actually scheduled to co-host that hour, and on a last minute, she walked off. She didn't do it. And many are speculating by she was complaining about her dressing room, that it was not up to snuff for her standards. And so much so that Hoda said on there, "We love her. We hope she comes back and we'll get you another dressing room." Well, there's a little backstory to this because when she was being interviewed by Savannah earlier in just her interview for Mea Culpa, she was talking about that, but Savannah pressed her a little bit on Beyonce questions. And apparently that's like, don't ask them too much about their former group. She asked about the tour. She pressed on to ask about, what do you think about Beyonce doing a country album? And Kelly didn't, you could tell she was uncomfortable. She didn't really want to talk about that. But according to today, like really no questions are off limits. Like if you go on that show, they're going to ask you. And these were not like salacious questions, by the way. It's her, she just kept saying the same thing. She's amazing and I support everything that she does. And so she may have been a little perturbed on that. I don't know. That really has nothing to do with not doing your duty and something that you said you would do. I think it's so unprofessional. And on top of that, here's the tea that you might like, Jeremy. She probably was complaining about her dressing room, that it wasn't up to snuff. But who did they give the biggest? Because it's known that I remember when I I got to go there. I was working for this marketing company, and the Teletubbies was our client of all
Oh
people.
my god.
And we were on the Today Show, so we went over there at 6, 4 in the morning, and I got to see some of these dressing rooms. They're tiny because it's just been there forever. But apparently there is one. Who else was a guest on the Today Show that morning? Was your Jennifer Lopez. And
Oh,
she
well,
brought
obviously Jennifer Lopez is getting the bigger one.
okay. Thank you so
And
much.
honestly, JLo's probably been on so much more than Kelly that they wouldn't just downgrade her to a smaller room. She probably knows specifically what room she's going in every time.
And she's Jennifer Lopez. So, I
Right.
mean, while I like Kelly Rowland and I remember seeing her in 2009 when Love Comes Over, David Guetta, and we were on the stage next to her, my boyfriend and I at the time, and she was amazing. You're not Jennifer Lopez. And to
When was that? Was that Ascension at Fire Island?
Yes,
I remember that.
2009,
Yeah.
amazing, and she was awesome, but she was kinda diva then because if anything knows anything about Fire Island, it's you're on a beach, there's no cars allowed. Well, they had the one SUV on the beach where they drove it up and she got out of the car and then stormed onto the stage, which was a amazing diva moment, right? But I just think really to not do your duty that you said you would do is like wrong. I mean, Jeremy, what do you think about this behavior?
I mean, I'm not really surprised by it, but I do agree that I would be annoyed if I'm being interviewed and then all she's asked about is Beyonce. That would definitely tick me off, but she also probably is used to it at this point. And I'm really not surprised that she had like a major diva moment and complaining about that stuff at all because it seems like that would be her MO.
Definitely me
She
too. While they
she
tried to
doesn't
twist
she's very beautiful, but she does not seem like the uh down to earth type of
What?
girl,
at
in my
all.
opinion.
I think she
Okay.
has to me, she has that facade that,
I mean,
oh
I'm
my
I'm not
God.
saying that Beyonce does, because I'm sure Beyonce's way worse, but I'm just saying I don't think that she doesn't give me like homey, relaxed, like cool, chill hangout vibes at all. She
Me
gives me
either.
divalicious.
But But here's the thing, Cody, it's in the
Mhm.
end because a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, she was supposed to be promoting this film Mea Culpa on Netflix, directed by Tyler Perry. That was your one job and here you are walking off." And every news outlet last week while I was away, that's why we're kind of doing it this week, but it lives on because I'll tell you in a second, is that they made it more about this. Kelly Rowland walks off set and not about mea culpa. But here's the caveat, Cody. The film is
Mhm.
number one on Netflix. So in the
See?
end, does she have
Kelly
the
wins.
last laugh? I don't know.
Yeah, so Kelly Rowland can do no wrong in my book. I
There
don't
we
think that
go.
I was over here being quiet. I was like, I'm gonna let them have their time. I'm
And
gonna get
also
mine.
Netflix has a bunch of bullshit on it, so I
Oh, here
mean,
we go.
mea culpa
You
mea
had to get
culpa
this
may
in,
be one of the
Jeremy.
better ones.
See? No, I don't. You never know what happens behind the scenes. I have never known Kelly Rowland to be problematic in this nature. This seems very out of character for her. I mean, I don't know the lady, but from my perspective, this is something that probably happened behind the scenes, and maybe she's using this as an excuse. The whole dressing room kerfuffle type deal. She's been there before. I can't imagine that she wouldn't know what the dressing room situation would be like. And for Hoda to come back and be like, Kelly Rowland should come back, that sets off a signal to me that maybe it was something else that happened because Hoda wouldn't be so welcoming to her, I feel like, if it was because of the dressing room, which I think is very petty. I agree
Well,
that it's very petty, but I don't know what else happened.
but I think it actually ended up being about the dressing room because Hoda actually, well, they did say it sounded like they were just, for being nice and they probably would want her back. But
Yeah.
she said, and girl, we'll get you a better dressing room. So she almost admitted that that was the whole issue while she was being kind and nice.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
Hoda is, she's gonna be nicey nicey and all that stuff, and it's morning TV, and they don't want to ruffle any feathers over there, or heaven forbid it gets back to the agents, all this crap. And so I think she was being diva. And Sherry
As
Shepherd,
is her right.
just to round out this story, she was on Sherry Shepherd the next day as a guest, and Sherry Shepherd made sure to run over to her dressing room and film all this social media for it. And Sherry's, of course, dressing room was all lush and flowers and paintings to prove, like, girl, you can always come over to Sherry. Our dressing room was way better.
Sherry is shady, baby. I love it. I love a whole
This
shady
is the
woman.
story that was, I was like, because on that cruise, we don't get all this. And so I was like, how did I miss all this? The
It's good
tea.
tea,
Oh
for
my God,
sure.
right? Okay, well, we love us some Ricky Martin, and he has not been shy. He's going to be an upcoming series that I cannot wait to watch. It has every celebrity, it's on Apple TV, and it looks so good. He's also on the cover of GQ right now. Have you seen it, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love the shoot.
Love it, love it, love it. And in there, we've talked about it before, but he again double downs and opens up about his foot fetish and how he meets men. And I just love it. He is 52. I'm a year older, and I just feel like he's my counterpart. And I agree, when you're of a certain age, you're kind of like just open about your fetishes. And he has put his feet out there. And one of the quotes that he has said is, I love feet. He told GQ, I have a foot thing. I love foot massages, and I would kiss your feet like crazy for hours. No complaints here. But here's the part that he added that I love. But we all have something, he added. Some have fetish of armpits. And thankfully, he's been posting pictures of his armpits lately. And I just think he's on a high note. He's going through a divorce, but it seems to be amicable, and I am here for it because I also have a foot fetish too, and I think he's putting the shame out of that. And he basically says everybody else has a fetish, they're just not willing to admit it. And as a person of a certain age, I do think that you are more open. Kodi, you're not quite where I'm at, but are you open with your
Almost.
fetishes? And what do you think about Ricky doubling down on his foot fetish to make he has people drawing his feet all the time too, and he's here for it.
I love it. I try to be as open as possible with my fetishes, because how else are you gonna have
Fetishes.
Fetishes, I know. I was
I
like,
just created a new fetish. It's called fetishes.
we will not
Let's
edit
make
that
it
out.
happen. I thank you very much. I knew as much. I try and be as open as possible with my fetishes and my fetishes, because I think that how can you have fun with your fetishes if you're not open about them, if you're not expressing them to your partners? Or how can other people learn about their fetishes if you're not open with other people about what's going on in your life? So I think the more that we share, the more that we learn. And that is my lovely Miss America answer. Thank you very much. Ricky Martin, though, is a freak, and I love it. And I want to see all the feet pictures. I need it.
I love him. And he was in a tour that just ended with Enrique and Pitbull, and I wish I would have gone to it. Although if I would have gone, I would have been paid close attention, because apparently they're all about equal status. And so what you had to do is pay attention, because they were rotating who went on first, to be fair. And you never, you had to keep track on if your city was Enrique first or was it Ricky Martin first. Well, I would just be like, if I didn't know, I'm like, we're going early. And I like Enrique and Pitbull, and I know they'll do a great job, I'm really here for my boy
Ricky.
Ricky. And so I would just get there early, because heaven forbid I miss if he was the first one. Jeremy,
Yeah.
what do you think about Ricky Martin, him opening up so openly about his fetish?
I love it, and I think it's hot, and it adds to his whole allure. And I think it's great to be open about the things that turn you on, and I don't think that there's any problem with talking openly about sexuality, especially with a partner or just dating and trying to find someone that's on the same page as you or is interested in trying new things as you are.
Yeah, I mean, I put my foot fetish off in my Sniffies profile, and I've had people say, "Oh, I'm into that too," and it gets you further along. I also think for celebrities like our LGBTQ plus celebrities, we are. It's so refreshing to be in the time that we are, and oftentimes we look at the times that we're in, and it's like, "Oh my god." What can we celebrate? Well, we can celebrate things like this because if you remember when he was on a very awkward interview back in the day where he didn't really want to come out and he was put on the spot by Barbara Walters. And I was reading another article earlier today. Noah's Ark Daryl Stevens was told in 2006 when Noah's Ark was coming out that don't say your sexuality. And although he was
Really?
gay, yeah. And I remember even when I was an actor in the 90s, it was told, no, no, put that aside. So to see us come full circle now, where not only are we out, we have Keith, Nick Oberman celebrating his win as an ally, and we have Ricky Martin saying his foot fetishes. We're like beyond just that we're gay or we're whatever. It's like now we're talking about our down and dirty things that we like in the sack. And so it's just, I'm just loving seeing this whole arc of growth in our community. And that's where I love it. So, okay, well, I don't know if you guys have hobbies, but on a recent thread, people were asking the question that went viral: what are your hobbies, if any? And it was on Ask Gay Men thread on Reddit. And one Redditor wrote, try having hobbies while working full time. I'm lucky if I can calm enough to sleep a few hours before on the weekend. But another begged to differ. I work full time and do my hobbies in the evening after work because it's how I decompress and relax before bed. And others chimed in. It went really viral. Some people said music or art. Genuine talent is such a turn on. Okay, Kodi. If I
Hey.
could find a violinist or a cellist, I'd fall hard head over feet. Somebody said plays ice hockey, sweaty, athletic, skillful, physical, and looks hot as fucking gear. Somebody said swimming. Recently, Kodi, we have a friend to the show that has shot us, and he came
Yeah.
over and pulled out a whole knitting, like he knits, and he was knitting this blanket. And I said, when do you do this? He's like, when I'm on the train. And it was like a beautiful blanket, and knitting isn't
What?
the easiest thing to do. I was actually like turned on by that, you know just by that hobby. Do hobbies really, I mean, hobbies can be anything. Recently I've gotten, Jeremy, you'll be happy to know that the orchid that you gave me a million years ago, literally, that wasn't flowering, is back to its purple flowers. And
I love it.
I replanted it recently, and it now has, I'm looking at it right now, it has two beautiful purple flowers. It's sitting in my windowsill, even though my nasty neighbor down the hall said, don't do that. But I didn't listen to him. It's still flowering anyway. So take that. And love lives, and that's one of my hobbies. And would you, is are hobbies sexy, Jeremy, to you? And what do you think of hobbies? I know interior design can be kind of a hobby, but it's your job too.
Yeah, I think they can be sexy, especially when meeting someone or just like bonding over something. And I think one of the ones that I loved doing when I was in New York that I haven't really taken over here, but I definitely want to this summer is biking. Just
Yes,
even if it's just biking for like on trails or just like,
we love that.
yeah, it's so relaxing and it's like it clears your head, and I just find that like super fun. And so I plan to, in warmer and better weather, get back into that because I loved it so much in New York. And I almost try to bike at least one day every time I visit New York. Obviously, not in Christmas season because New
Mm.
York City is nuts, but any other time that I visit, it's just one thing that I really love to do. And
You-
I think meeting someone, you get a feel for them a lot better when you find out things that they enjoy doing. And I can also understand the other point of view where you don't feel like you have tons of time for hobbies, but I do think that you can always make time to fit them in here and there, even if it's once a month or once every few weeks.
I think I agree 100%. And I think the thing about hobbies is I think it really will benefit us in the future because it works with our brain, and it really requires you to use your brain in ways that you don't normally use, and that can only be good as we age. But on a sexy level, first of all, you don't have to do everything with your partner, and in fact, when you want to do a lot of things with your partner, you want to have things in common, but when you find out that they have this other thing that you probably never would want to do, that is sexy to know that they've either learned this, they've spent time doing this is kind of what they do on some of their off time. Just to know that they're doing this, whether it's like volleyball and they're doing it on the weekend or knitting or whatever, is sexy to me because I don't know. I just want to know that you have something else that you're into. Kodi, I mean, you're a musician, and I don't know if you think of it as a hobby. It's more like part of you. But what do you think about this thing? Do you find hobbies sexy? And what's your thoughts?
Oh, definitely. It provides another layer to a person to find out about their hobbies. It contextualizes for me how they grew up, what they value, how they release their stress, all of those things. So I really think that it's really sexy, and it's intimate to know somebody's hobby, in my personal opinion. For me personally, I do see music as a hobby, but as a hobby that I want to turn into my career. And but I have other hobbies as well. I collect comic books. That's a hobby. It's
I
sleeping.
was thinking of that, Kodi.
It's fun too. It really takes my mind off of things. It allows my creative juices to flow, so it revitalizes me. Is sleeping a hobby though? Because I want to get that one in. I want to get that merit
It's not,
badge.
but
I knew Steve would say it's definitely not.
it's not
I
100%
mean,
not,
cuddling
but
cuddling is like really,
Ooh.
really on up there too.
Yeah.
ooh,
Or sex. Is
yeah.
sex a hobby? Because I definitely got
It's an
the gold medal in that
extracurricular,
one.
and
Okay, let's do
it's a
it.
main activity, I think, and some of
Come
us make
on.
it part of our actual jobs too, but, I mean, yeah, anything can be, it's just I think it's sexy to find out when your person you're interested in or your friends have something else that maybe you didn't know that they're into. I really love hiking and nature. And I think, I don't know if that's a hobby, but I enjoy going out and enjoying nature. Honestly, I never thought I would be into birds at all, and I'm not into all birds. I'm into like wild birds because when I was in Africa, you see some of the most gorgeous birds. And we were passing around this book and as we were in the Jeep, and I was like so intrigued. And I really am interested in unique birds and not birds that you have in your house and all that kind of stuff. Jeremy, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so you can learn to like, someday I really want to get into embroidery because I just love embroidery and I just think you could do so many cool things with it. So painting would be something I want to try at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be any good, but I want to try. Jeremy
We
has
should try together.
We
I
should
would love
try
to try painting.
together. And then Jeremy always has some tips and tricks for your apartment or your house on how to elevate it that really aren't that hard, right, Jeremy? That
Yeah, like hardware and peel and stick wallpaper and what else? Light fixtures, like simple things, artwork.
That can be a whole hobby too, to take your space and maybe you're kind of bored with it or you're like, wah, wah. And it's like, well, I don't really have that thumb, but actually there's some simple tricks and things that you can do. And it can be kind of a hobby and you'll find yourself getting passionately into it. I think it's anything that gets your mind off of the day to day and into something that you're into. And when you see that in somebody else, it's sexy. I don't know. It just is, and then you can go fuck. Well, speaking of fucking, this They're calling it in this article degrading. I don't know if it really is, but it's a sex act that a lot of people like, and it literally has to do with facials. um, the act of facials might be labeled degrading in mainstream, but these are the same folks who used to consider oral sex taboo, according to the article. And it's dubbed the money shot in porn for a reason. So maybe it's about time society feigning disgust. There's actually evidence that suggests people who enjoy giving or receiving facials have a higher self esteem. So if someone
Oh.
says your skin is glowing with confidence, you can go ahead and point them to the nearest human spa, and that could be an app like Grinder. Okay, well, there's an actual doctor that they talked about this, and she revealed in Sex and Psychology podcast that a study found men who performed facials had higher sexual esteem, regardless of sexuality, and women who received facials had a higher sexual self esteem. Um, this goes on, and this is a really good article on this. I got a facial on the cruise. I
Oh.
connected with somebody that was slightly very younger than me, but a dom. He was 31 to my 53, and we had great connection. We talked a lot, but we had a lot of sex. And he liked knowing that I was sometimes a sub and I liked being a sub. And when it came for that money shot, he pushed me down and gave me the money shot and made me look at I was all for it. And then he made me dress him too, including putting his socks and
Oh
shoes
my.
on and his underwear. I was living for it. I felt very freeing. I even had a friend in the room that watched the whole thing, and I was very freeing to even have that being a part of the situation. Jeremy, do you think that are you into facials, and do you think it has anything to do with self-esteem?
I'm like yay or nay for facials. I don't they don't like do anything for me or turn me on a lot, but I also am not like bothered by them. So I don't know if I necessarily would want to take it on my face, but I would probably be into like busting on someone's face, but at the same time I'm like I don't know, I've never really thought about it before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I don't think it needs to be a part of every sexual experience that I do have. I think it has, to me, it has to do with who I'm connecting with. And this was somebody that I had met earlier in the cruise. And then this was now towards the end of the cruise. And we had talked a lot and we had gotten into what each of us was into. And we had talked about that he liked a older sub to his younger self,
Oh
and
wow.
we got mental about a lot of this stuff in a good way. And I think there was a lot of backstory to the by the time that we ultimately got to the facial. So the facial part of it became kind of culminated all of this backstory that we had had. Do I think it's a part of every sexcapade that I have? No, and I don't think it's necessary all the time, but it can be a product of the psychology that you might have with a particular person. Kodi,
Hmm.
what do you are you a big fan of facials, and do you think that there's anything to do with what they're talking about of self-esteem?
I will come on everybody's face. I don't need a connection. I just need for you to be underneath me. I do think you were saying that it was a sexual self esteem thing, and I was like, well, that makes sense because I feel like in the bedroom I am very self confident. I'm very dominant. I didn't want those words to come out of my mouth, but I am. So I think that I could see how in me it equates to sexual self-confidence. I'm even down to get it on my face because once you get me going, you can get me to pretty much do anything you want. So I'm here for it. And I say more facials and then the whole world will have glowing skin like you said.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm so here for it. And yeah, I mean, I have this one guy that is a friends with benefits, and when he decides to come, it is buckets, to use your word, Jeremy, and buckets. It's like insanity. And I cannot wait for that. It's forget it just on my face. It's like over the entire apartment floor. And it's like cleaning lady, schedule it to 12 o'clock because he'll be
Get the
here.
deep clean.
Yeah, deep clean that. And mostly because we don't want to slip. But yeah. And I am so here for it. Speaking of slipping around, we got to end with this one Redditor that wrote, "What lube do you use for masturbating? Most lube I tried have unpleasant, sticky feel." And I got a shout out to Will of Tantric Fitness, who was on our live show recently, who I was just on the cruise with. And Kodi, if you remember, he actually is a fan of oil. And
Mm.
his favorite is Bader Balm, which I want to get. And it is a lubricant, more oil based. And when we asked him on the show, what about water based? And he said, no, water dries up immediately and it's not good for that. And while he was said that silicone can be good, he really likes oil, and Bader Balm is his favorite. He said use lubrication when we masturbate was his recommendation, because if you really want to be able to ejaculate and have that money shot inside someone or in their mouth, or do you want to simulate that? So many of us, and I'm guilty of it, often masturbate dry, and I've gotten used to that. Well, if you're having problems ejaculating inside somebody, it's because you're not simulating the experience. So he says, and I believe it, Will of Tantric Fitness, use lubrication when you're masturbating because it will only simulate the mouth or the pussy or whatever, or the hole, and it will help you when you find yourselves in sexual situations to be able to have that money shot or come. And so mine is going to be Bader Balm. But Jeremy, do you have a favorite lube that you use when you're masturbating, or are you more dry, or what do you think about all this talk?
I think I agree with him, and I think that I've had that same situation before where I am so used to masturbating dry, and then I'm in the situation with someone and I like can't come, or like
Right.
it's just a very different setting when you're masturbating alone and you're just using like spit, and it's I don't know if it's this the setting of having someone else there that makes it in your head and just different, but I definitely think that the lube does help, and I think I'm gonna try out the Bader Balm too.
Absolutely, too. I wrote to them today, too, so we'll see if they're.
Because I don't
Ooh.
I water based always dries up, and then silicone I like. It's just it definitely heavily stains anything that it gets on, and that's the annoying part.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kodi, because when we were talking to Will, one of the things he was a big fan of is taking more time to masturbate. He's a big fan of elongating the experience. And, we
Hmm.
don't have time for that. Sometimes we want a quickie, but what I think I'm going to switch to actual using lubrication, if not Bader Balm, to elongate my experience, to simulate the sexual experience, because I think, like Jeremy and like many of us, we've trained ourselves to dry, to kind of wham bam get it on, and we're successful with it. But then when it comes to, I really want to be successful in my sexual experiences. How do you weigh in on this?
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with you. I've had these issues before, and using the oil has definitely helped me. I use Vaseline Intensive Care Cocoa Radiant. It's a
Okay.
vitalizing body oil. I know. I saw it on Reddit actually, which is pretty funny because it's like full circle basically for me, because they put a picture of it on Reddit and they were like, this is the best thing to masturbate with. And I was like, oh well, I gotta get it, because and it's pretty good and it's got a very nice smell, and my dick is never look more beautiful in my opinion. So I think it's well worth it.
It moisturizes it, and easy breezy cover girl, right? Well,
Exactly. It puts eyelashes on it. It's fantastic.
come on. Well, and on that episode, we were talking about Bait World, and I've been on there since Will told us
Ooh.
about Bait World, and where you can masturbate with people around the world, and you can show yourself or you don't have to show yourself. And that's a place that you would want to elongate the experience. And when I was on there, I used baby oil, which isn't the greatest, but I'm going to switch to this new one that we're talking about, or an oil that, I don't like the smell of baby oil anyway, so I need
Well,
something, or
this Vaseline one is, I think it's cocoa butter scented. So it's got I enjoy the smell.
well, and I was just in the Caribbean and I got 100% shea butter.
Ooh.
Honey, that stuff is natural and amazing. So that would be another good one to try too. So, okay, well, so much fun. Thanks, guys. This has been so amazing catching up. And you can always follow my co host. You can follow Jeremy on Instagram at JRossLopez. JRossLopez. Follow Kodi. He is a life coach at KMD Coaching, or his personal account at Mr. Maurice. Mr. Maurice. And follow me on the gram. I am _Steve V. Of course, I have an OnlyFans with new content coming out each week. And you can go to onlyfans.com/sexy poppy Steve V. Oh, yeah. Thanks, guys. So much fun. And in the
Yes.
meantime, continue having hot,
Hot
gay
gay
sex.
sex.
Lovely.